can't turn the camera off. I physically can turn the camera off, but I can't mentally turn the camera off. My brain won't let me. Kimball's Corner Store. Groceries, beer, and food. Which is fine with me. I gotta make some adjustments on my camera here so I can get better footage of this. The leaves are falling off the trees. Look at those bikes. Pretty paint job. Wow. Aurora, Huntsville, 13 and 20. That's where I'm at. Change the angle of the front camera a little bit. Oh. That is this camera here, the one you're seeing right now, is the Hero 3 Plus Black. It does not have any type of internal or mechanical image stabilization. So I'm sure it's got some vibrations to it. I'm probably going to have to put some stabilization onto it in post. So what you're seeing is after I've fixed it up a little bit. This camera here is the Session 5, and it does have image stabilization built in digitally, and usually it does pretty good. So this ought to be rock solid footage right now, and truly one of the better pictures out of all my cameras. I'm blown away by the Session 5. It is absolutely worthy of a buy at $200. I bought mine new, even though they're not still making them. If you need to grab one, I'm telling you, you need to grab a Session 5, a 5 session, not the 4, not the other. Make sure it's a Session 5. And because I'm getting another one, maybe 2 more. It is that good of a camera. And I'll be selling these others because there's no reason to have them. The Hero 3 Plus Black has served me well in the past with my other moto vlogs. Especially, you know, since the beginning, really. That's the one, I mean, I can remember when I had the 3 Plus Black and I was thinking to myself, oh yeah, this is the camera to have, man. I was like, I've got the technology. I'm on the cutting edge right now of technology with this. And of course now they're coming out with the Hero 7, which, wow, that is an amazing camera. The Hero 5, meh. The Hero 6, meh. The Hero 7, whoa, dude, that's a camera. And I will own one, along with the Galaxy S10 Plus. That's it, the S10 Plus is a thing. I'm sure it will be. Due to come out, estimated February or March-ish. But the Hero 3 Plus has been a good camera. It takes some post work, a little bit of post manipulation to make it good. The Session 5, basically you don't even need to touch it. Look at these curves right here. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this beautiful? The Hero 4, this one here on my chin, is the Hero 4 Plus Black. I mean the Hero 4 Black. It doesn't have the touchscreen on the back of it, which would have been nice, just for composition and to be able to go into the settings a lot easier. But once you learn how to work the menu and stuff, it's a pretty good camera itself. It's nothing mind-blowing or anything, but it does have a good image quality. And the thing I like about it is it has a lot of options as far as screen resolution. and frames per second. It's got a lot of options. It shoots up to 4K at 30 frames per second, which I don't use for multiple reasons, but it does have 2.7K at 60 FPS, which is what I use, because once you down res that to 1080, it's a really high quality 1080. Another thing I like about the Hero 4 Black is it's still got the mini USB port on the side, so you can plug in a mic adapter and then plug your mic right into it. It's easy to use for, especially for motovlogging. It's really easy to use. And I've got the battery delete connected to it too, so days like this, when these other two cameras go dead because I have nothing plugged into them, they're just running off of their internal battery. When the batteries go dead on these two cameras, I'll have to put one of them or both of them in my saddlebag and plug them in to start charging. So I'm left without those cameras. Of course, it's not that big a deal, but I'm left without those cameras, and maybe could be clutch moments. I mean, the moments you want to put on, moments you want to catch, and you can't because the battery's dead. Well, this Hero 4, I've got set up so that it'll last all day. The only limitation right now, the way I've got it set up, is the 64 gigabyte micro Extreme Pro SD card that I've got installed. So it shouldn't quit because it's not writing fast enough. The only reason this camera should quit is because it ran out of memory. And at 64 gigabytes, that's a long time at 2.7K. The Hero 3 Plus Black has got a battery backpack on it. So if you're familiar with GoPros, on the front it'll tell you the battery level indicator, and it shows 3 bars. The battery level is indicated by thirds. When you put the battery backpack on it, it adds another 3 thirds, so you've got sixths now. So it doubles the battery capacity, and it puts in 6 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you can actually watch. One battery will deplete itself, and then the other battery will deplete itself. And it's just the opposite when you charge it. You plug it in, regardless of which port you put it in, it charges either the GoPro first, and then the battery backpack, or the battery backpack and then the GoPro. I believe that's how that works. And then the Session doesn't have all that great a battery time, although, I mean, I have had pretty good luck with it. Once it goes dead, there's no removable battery, so you can't just swap out the batteries like you can on the 3 Plus Black. Look at this, this is beautiful. That's another thing I wanted to mention on the Hero 4 Black. You can, if I weren't hooked up with the setup that I have going right now, I could, in essence, carry extra batteries and swap those out. And I could do the same thing with the 3 Plus Black. I could swap the batteries. And if I had multiple batteries, I could probably last all day long with no issues. But the Session is not that way. That's the only downside to the Session 5, is that the battery's internal and you can't remove it. So once it dies, it has to be recharged and can't be used while it's plugged in, from what I understand. That's the only drawback of the Session 5, but that's not an issue to me because the digital image stabilization and the image quality is fantastic. And not only that, but it's future-proof as well because it shoots at 4K 30. The reason I don't use 4K is because, one, my computer is not fast enough to process the video. I have a fast computer, what I consider to be a fast computer. It has no issues doing just about anything. I can play Doom on low settings. I mean, it's pretty good. but it will not process 4K video to where it makes it user-friendly. It'll do it, but it makes it such a pain in the rear that it's not even worth it. Besides all that, 4K is not at a point yet where it's really consumed all that much. You may be watching a video, you may be able to watch videos on YouTube in 4K if you have a 4K TV and a high enough stream or bitrate or internet connection, but the process it took those YouTubers or whoever it is to get that 4K to your screen is pretty tremendous in this current time. It's not unattainable, but it is expensive because you have to have processing power. You've got to have the storage, and that's another thing. You have to have the storage. That's pretty. And it's just difficult. So even with like 1080 or 2.7K, which is like in between, 2.7K is in between 4K and 1080. It gives you, once you process it, a high quality 1080 picture. But 2.7K, once you start processing that video in your computer and making your movie, you've most likely added some saturation, you've adjusted the contrast, you've maybe added or taken away some sharpness, or you've adjusted the brightness and exposure levels. Not always do you have to do that. In fact, most of the time you don't. I don't. Aurora 4, Huntsville 11. But on 2.7K video, that is awesome. 2.7K video, if you add some extras to that video file, your computer, or at least my computer, has a hard time processing things because it's reading extra information on top of that video. Once it's processed and rendered, it'll play back beautifully. Anyways, that's why I don't use 4K, because it's not consumed as much. It takes up storage space, and it's harder to process. Now, the way I've got these cameras mounted up here, the 3 Plus Black is mounted to the front of my fairing on the paint, on the flat area, right in the center, with GoPro's suction mount. I have never had that suction mount on a clean, non-porous surface come off when applied properly. The other suction mount that I use, which is the Joby suction mount, has come off multiple times, but only while it was mounted up here on this windshield. So I'm a little sketchy about suction mounts at the moment. So my suggestion would be to anyone deciding to use a suction mount, because they are versatile. It's easy to take them off and do what you want with them, and then put them back down and make them suction again. I would use a catch, some type of safety catch, to go around the camera, so that if it falls off, it's not hitting the ground and getting run over by 18-wheelers that are crawling up your butt. Because forget the camera, but if your camera falls off and you're anything like I am, they're kind of like they're my tools, man. I take pride in my cameras. I love my equipment. I'm kind of a nerd techie. So if my Session or my GoPro Hero 3 Plus Black or my 4 Black falls off of my bike, the first thing I'm thinking about instantly is catch it or save it or whatever. And guess what that does? That puts me in danger. So with these and not only that, but it takes my focus off of the road, because I have found myself thinking about whether, you know, the cameras bounce around, kind of like this phone's bouncing. Well, I know the phone's not going anywhere because the way that it's mounted, it can't come off. This would have to get hit and break for it to come off. But with a suction mount, I find myself constantly thinking that it's going to come off, which takes my focus off of riding. And that's not good. So using a catch is going to be your best bet regardless. And I would suggest using a sticky mount if you can. The catch that I'm using now is, you can go to Walmart and buy, they have the little, it's like a tube, like a half-gallon tube full of tie-down straps, the bungee straps, different colors for different lengths. And some of the small ones that are in there are just loops, like elastic, high-strength loops that have a ball on one end, like this. Like that. And so the way I have that mounted is pretty ingenious, if I have to toot my own horn. But I've dropped that oh, look at that. Drop that loop through my vent right here. Let it close. That ball won't fit through that vent, but the elastic loop does, and it allows me to put a suction mount on the front and loop it around my camera, twist the camera so that the loop is twisted, which just adds to a little bit of, you know, a little bit of resistance for it to come loose, so that if it falls, I don't have to go into a straight panic, because it's going to catch the camera. It has no choice. So I'm not worried at all about these cameras falling. The Session is hard mounted with a clamp to my crash bars, so it's not coming off. The only thing I got to worry about now is my battery's going dead, or a huge yellow bug hitting the screen right dead center. And I don't know, because I can't see my other two cameras, but it's a very good possibility that they are not recording anymore because the battery's dead. I'm going to bet that the 3 Plus Black is still going, because it's got the battery backpack, and it was a fresh battery when I started it at the beginning of this vlog. The Session, I don't know, because I've been using it. So if the Session is still going right now, you're looking at it, and it could go off at any moment. It could last another hour. I don't know. The Hero 4, not even worried about it. But I'm gonna let these things roll until they go dead. And if you guys plan on carrying multiple cameras for whatever reason, my number one thing, or my number one piece of advice would be, find you a good video processing program and take your time. I started out with Windows Movie Maker, and I believe at this time it is a free, of course this has been years ago, I started using Windows Movie Maker in '97 or something like that, making movies that were, I mean, I've lost all that since, because my computer crashed and it got completely wiped. But start out with a simple video editing program. There's lots of free ones that you can download. Windows Movie Maker is tried and true. There's not a lot of options with Windows Movie Maker, but the good thing about it is it's simple and it will teach you the basics, so that when you learn, the main thing is if you go and pick a in-depth, detailed video processing program and start using that with no experience, it's going to be frustrating. As long as I've been editing video, the program that I use still has, not much, but it still has it still has things in the program that I've never used before. But the tools are arranged in such a way that you're only limited by your creativity. But on Windows Movie Maker, it's pretty basic. It's drag and drop, split, transitions, audio levels, maybe some very minor image quality changes, and then process. That's about it. And starting out, that's really all you need to know. But the one that I use is called the Cyberlink Power Director. I believe mine's 2013 edition. That's not the most current one. I think the most current is 2016 at the time of this video. But guys, I've got a lot more I could tell you about my techie stuff and the equipment that I use and what process I go through to make these videos. If you guys have any questions, I'll surely answer them at some point for sure. Please don't hesitate to drop those comments down below so that I can read them, because if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you already know that I do read your comments. I do respond, and I will get to them eventually. So guys, thank you for coming along on this little excursion of ours on the Pig Trail 2018 September, on the quest for a near-life experience on my journey machine. Guys, please give it a thumbs up if you thought this content was good. We are now entering Huntsville. I'm going to turn the camera off and enjoy some of this ride. Thank you so much for coming along. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications that let you know when I've uploaded more content. Leave comments down there, guys. Let me know what you want to see.